of thoughtfulness and intentionality, but also the opportunity to share things out. So I don't know if you had an opportunity to run through this entire mission as it was originally set up, or you just had a lovely conversation either with yourself or with a handful of folks at your table. But I want to give you the opportunity to volunteer an insight, a question, a problem, a thought that you had through the experience of the past hour. Yes.
I know with me, I had a lesson, but I was struggling with trying to figure out how to bring all these in, and it was just really helpful having people from other disciplines as well in the group to be able to just throw it out there and say, okay, this is kind of what I'm thinking, and they were able to give me some really good feedback and some ideas that really helped me to think through it a little bit more.
Fantastic. And first name?
Sandy.
Sandy. So Sandy said that she was having a difficult time. I don't know if can you all hear her in the back? Okay. So Sandy was reporting out that she had a difficult time figuring out how to use the 4 attributes to reimagine an assignment, and that she found real benefit or value from the other folks in her group to give insight or suggestions or ideas on the particular assignment. Right? Did I summarize okay? So I think there's power in actually not being with your normal counterparts, to actually playing off ideas with somebody that doesn't have a stake in the content area, but has a stake in you being successful with your own students. So that's super cool. Other insights, problems, challenges that you want to raise based on your hour of design time. Yes, first name, by the way. Julie. Can you speak a little bit louder?
I'm planning on doing some group projects. With the 3, and I'm typing up the chapter on the 20s that I was going to assign the topics randomly. Because I let everybody choose, they'd all pick school. So I'm wondering, like, is that okay to randomly assign? And then say, kids can grade if you want to. If I'm giving them the option of presenting it in their own way.
Do you understand the question that she's raising? So she was originally planning on having kids randomly be assigned topics, right, in the territory of the 1920s. And this is actually an interesting or helpful thing. It doesn't matter what subject area it's in. When do we let kids choose the topic? And when do we sort of have them pick things out of the hat, right? So what do you think about that? Just play that out for a moment.
Depends what you're trying to achieve.
Okay.
It depends what you're trying to achieve as to how far you let them make the decisions.
So what might happen if the entire class picks sports heroes in the 20s? I'm going for the worst case scenario. Or all flappers all the time. To what extent would they have a rich and robust understanding of the 1920s? And the answer is they wouldn't. So you would have to think about, if the goal is to have a rich understanding of the 1920s, and they randomly select topics, they're still not going to have a rich understanding of the 1920s. They may be connected to that particular topic that they pulled out of a hat. Does that make some sense?
PowerPoint presentation is what I have in my area. But they could, that's where I was saying the quiz could come in. Right now I said PowerPoint presentation, but then I'm thinking we just have a way to present it. Problem is that when students are, I would say, low level, but they need a lot of structure and empathy, and that's hard when you say do whatever you want.
Yep. So, and this is a lovely, powerful example that you and I can continue to play out with. So I'm more than happy to do that right at the end of this, or like in the afternoon, or even just Tuesday or Wednesday next week. But I think you're on to something. So the concern you have about randomly assigning topics is something I want you to be concerned about. But you're also doing this kind of cross-benefit analysis. When does student freedom or student choice make me more nervous as opposed to more comfortable? And at what point are we geared toward the goals that we're after in the first place? So if I have kids that need a lot of structure and a lot of hand-holding, if they're not really connected to the topic in the first place, the likelihood that they can continue to grow in their independence becomes slimmer because they're not excited about the topic in the first place. So that's part of my cost-benefit analysis. Ultimately, the design choices are up to you. And then you play it out and see what works, what's not working, and continue to tweak it for the next time around. But I think that's the heart of what you're going after. Continuing to use the 4 attributes just to examine existing assignments. And even if you just run it and you don't change the design at all, it starts raising questions that you may potentially think through and test out, even in conversation with kids, about how you can continue to get them more engaged and invested and independent. But I'm more than happy to talk through that with you a little bit later. So I think the reality here is that you have a better understanding of how you can begin to personalize learning one assignment at a time, one topic at a time, or even one classroom structure at a time, like thinking about getting kids to become more immersed in reading or more powerful and productive in the lab partner scenario. So the last part I want to do with you is a concept attainment exercise. All you're going to need is your thumbs as a vote, okay? Thumbs up means that it's true, thumbs down, it's false, and thumbs sideways means it depends. Are we good? You can actually sort of phone a friend. You don't have to just look at me. You can look at what everybody else is doing and change your vote. I don't care, right? So who wants to be a millionaire? Totally legit, right? Ready? Concept statement number 1. Personalized learning requires a huge investment in technology. Where are we? And again, be curious about what one another is saying right now. Where are we? Look around. Can you verify that most of you are saying thumbs down or thumbs sideways? Are we all in agreement on that? Right. So reality here is that while personalized learning is marketed by lots of software platform companies, hardware companies, you have to have technology. Technology makes it a heck of a lot easier, I'm not going to lie, but it is not necessary to personalize learning. I can do personalized learning as old school as I want. The reality here is that if I have some kind of learner management system where I can upload musical recordings, where's John? So I can upload musical recordings on a software platform to see how they were performing in week 1, week 2, week 3, and they're creating goals to move into the next week of what they're practicing on, and to what extent are they improving performance over time? Yeah, it helps. So the answer to that is it doesn't need to, but it does make things a little bit easier. I also want to clarify that a one-to-one tech program, one-to-one student ratio, is not necessary either. But to have kids have regular, meaningful access to some kind of technology is. So if that's an assumption, then we need to continue to make sure that assumption is true for every learner as opposed to most learners, because it does create a level of unevenness in terms of equity. You good on that? Okay. Statement number 2. You get the game so far. Personalized learning means that every student has their student has their own individualized learning plan. True or false? Everybody needs to vote so that people can be curious about where people are and they can potentially change their votes. And all of a sudden, again, keep in mind, people's thumbs continue to change different directions. So lots of folks are continuing to muck around with their votes, which does clarify the challenge here. So the theory here is that a lot of people right out of the gate say, that means every kid, how many kids do you typically have in your class? So I have 36 kids, and if you're telling me that every one of my 36 kids, and you may have a caseload of like 175, are you flipping kidding me, right? So that's something that I don't take lightly. To have kids have 175 different plans creates a level of misery where people, that would be you all, would quit before lunch. Are we good? And that's why it's interesting to see this kind of thumbs sideways for some of you and thumbs up. So the theory is the students already have their individualized learning plan. Are we good on that? They have a clue on to what extent can I be successful in your class on this assignment with this text, topic, problem, or challenge. So the theory here is that that's why we're trying to get them to be using their voice and having them have some kind of influence on the creation. Because there are moments where they do have their own individualized learning plan. They just don't take that out in the light of day with you. So going back to somebody like Terry, if I feel like I'm bad at math, you'll see evidence of that from me as a kid in your class, doesn't matter what topic we're in. So if I feel like I don't have the tools, that's very different from me feeling like I don't have the confidence. That's very different from me not feeling like you give me enough space or room to learn how to do something. All three of those can actually be something where we get kids creating and helping with them to continue to grow their own success in a classroom. So the answer is probably thumb sideways. It's not as miserable as 175 different kinds of learning experiences that are happening in the same room. But at the same time, you know, just based on my class size right now, there are 155 or something like that, different kinds of experiences that are happening for you right now. And my job is to, in this massive space, to continue to get you to articulate the ideas that are most helpful so that you can take action on. Yeah.
So you could change that to some students, or you can say at certain times.
I like that at certain times better. Once we say some, that gets me very, very nervous.
Okay.
But your reception may be very different from the reception of you, and you're sitting next to each other. And so the reality here is that there are certain questions, problems, examples that resonate immediately, and sometimes it may take a couple of weeks or a couple of years or somebody else explaining it other than me. Or an opportunity just to be in your own space and design for that. All right, statement number 3. Take a read. Personalized learning expects a significant level of self-direction from students. True or false? Let me see. Look around the room. Yeah, I mean, so this to me is a square thumbs up. if we want to grow a level of independence in their capacity to be able to handle problems, challenges, and scenarios, it really does require us paying attention to grow their ability to figure out a problem or a challenge without our assistance. However, the thumb sideways has a degree of legitimacy. We can't expect to go from 0 to 60 in one moment. The last thing I want you to do starting tomorrow is to say, hey, we're gonna grow your self-direction, so I'm gonna give you a problem and watch you struggle for a while. Good luck. Especially if that's not part of your MO of how you've been running your classroom in the first half of the year. So the theory here is that you're growing self-direction, but you're growing the sense of, I'm using my new word, you're growing the sense of well-being of the student. Because if they're not used to being independent and self-directed, to give them lots of opportunities to be self-directed and just watch them fail without any level of scaffolding and support is mean-spirited and will likely not be of value or of help to them at best. So trying to pay attention to growing self-direction, but also not making scaffolding a dirty word. But your goal always is independence. All right, last. In a personalized learning classroom, the teacher is more of a manager and less of an instructor. Where are we? Look at each other. Fascinating. Yeah, and see, this is a question or statement that I drafted in reaction to, again, I don't know if you read The Atlantic on a regular basis, but if you want to do a miserable read, like a read like Heidi sent to me and I called her like just in despair. It's a deconstruction of the K-12 educator, right? So if you want to do a quick miserable read, go after it. Because it should be a thumbs sideways or a thumbs down. Your job is not just to manage the learning. That's an individualized structure. You're not setting up a set of problems and looking at how they're experiencing it. Your job is to be the manager, the facilitator, the coach, the sounding board. So that's the heart of why it's a thumb sideways. But again, the deconstruction of the K-12 teacher, and again, maybe you want to read it after school so you can have a cocktail with it because it's not a happy experience. But that's code for teachers are going to be replaced by charter schools and software virtual programs. That's what it's code for. Written by a high school teacher. Again, a lot of anecdotal evidence that was contributing to the research, but at the same time, scary nonetheless. So the challenge is, in a personalized learning classroom, what is the role of the classroom teacher? And what's the role of the student? But your job, number one, is not managing the learning. It's much more sophisticated than that. But it's not also solely the disseminator of information. So I'm thinking about what a theater teacher does. I'm thinking about what a culinary teacher does. There are times where you're doing direct instruction. There are times where you're watching and looking at what's happening in real time and letting them fail and understand why this got burnt, messed up, spoiled, etc. Make sense? Okay. And the last one. Personalized learning is not appropriate for students with special needs. Yay! Awesome. So we're ending on a high note because the idea is that personalized learning by default is the heart of what special education is about. That's where we have individualized learning plans for every student. So we're growing out of the heart and soul of what every child needs, but in a way where it's going after behavioral, emotional, intellectual health. So we're thinking about the whole student in relation to the rigorous, challenging problems that are at the heart of our disciplines. All right? So congratulations, it is 11:44, so you are free to go, right? And I'll see you back here in the library at around 12:45 for part 2.
I grabbed my wallet and I just realized I was pulling out.
Figure out when figure out which my kids may or may not show up.
All right, I know it's